أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله.
Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala, amma ba'd. We continue speaking about Masjid As-Zakat, the places where zakat is able to be paid to. And we spoke last week about the first three categories: al-fuqara, wal-masakin, wal-amilina alayha, the poor who are very poor, al-masakin who are poor but they are better in their state, and then al-amilina alayha, those who work in zakat. And we went into a bit of details regarding those three. Before we continue, what's the difference between fuqara and masakin numbers wise, percentage wise?
50%.
You weren't here last week, were you? Oh, you were here. That's what I thought the brother next to you. I was going to say I'm very pretty good. 0 to 49, the fuqara, 0 to 49%. If he, for example, needs $1,000 a week and he only makes 100 or 200 or 300 or 400, up to 49% of his needs, then this is a faqir. If 50 or more, up to 99%, then this is a miskin. So if someone he needs $1,000, but he only makes $700, for example, for him and those that he looks after, like his family, this person is a miskin. So both of them are entitled to zakat if they fulfill the conditions. And the amilina alayha, we said, this is a person appointed by the Muslim government. If there's no Muslim government, then it goes back to awliya al-umur. And these are the people of authority, not just in government, especially if there is no government, but the fuqaha, the ulama. These are the ones that decide who is needed and what's needed and how much, etc. Today, inshallah Azza wa Jalla, we'll begin page 31, type 4. Those inclined to Islam, وَالْمُؤَلَفَةِ قُلُوبُهُم. Those who you want to bring closer to Islam. We'll read and then we'll explain, because there are different types. And there are of two types, Muslims and non-Muslims. These are leaders who are obeyed amongst their people, who it is hoped that by giving them they may become Muslim, or to stop their evil doing, or to strengthen their faith, or to ward off the enemies of the Muslims. They are given an amount from the zakat that will bring about a greater inclination of their hearts towards Islam. When it comes to وَالْمُؤَلَفَةِ قُلُوبُهُم, those who you want to bring their hearts closer to Islam, you have two types, the Muslims and the non-Muslims. We'll start with the non-Muslims. From the non-Muslims, you can give someone in order to bring them towards Islam, or you can give them in order to keep their harm away from the Muslims. We'll explain inshallah Azza wa Jalla in a bit of detail. Let's say you have a tribe, there's a group of people or a village, and they've got, for example, the chief. And whatever the chief does, the people will follow. And this was the norm throughout the centuries. And even nowadays in many countries, this is still how it is. You have the head of the tribe or the head of the village, and if he becomes Muslims, everyone else becomes Muslim. And so you give him to bring his heart closer to Islam. This is something which unfortunately a lot of people, they misunderstand the benefits of this type of zakat, and they say very silly things, and it shows their lack of wisdom. First and foremost, we need to always remind ourselves that who is the one that gave us Islam? Allah. Who is the one that placed the rules for Islam? Allah. So if it's in the Quran or in the authentic Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, then know 100% it's correct, and something is wrong with either your understanding of it or something is wrong with your comprehension. As for what Allah Azza wa Jalla revealed, then it is 100% correct. When you give someone, naturally the hearts lean towards comfortability. The hearts, whether you like it or not, human beings, whether you like it or not, it is their nature that they seek awe, they seek greatness in that which they see from the materialistic means. And a person may be more inclined to one thing over the other based on materialistic means. As an example, let's say you have a woman who wants to get married to a man, and she wants to make a choice. Maybe he's a very good man. Maybe she has two choices. One is, he's a very good man, but he's materialistic speaking, his wealth is not as much. If she gets married to him, she may lead a life of hardship. And another guy who may be like 50-50. He's like decent, but he's got some issues, but mashallah, he's a very wealthy person. You may have many people who their hearts are more inclined to the wealthier person. Why? Because they say, with that wealth, I can make my life a lot easier. So you may have some people that may choose, for example, a partner based on their spouse. Look at, for example, your workplace. Let's say you've got two companies. You want to go work at a place, you apply for two companies. Both companies say, we're happy to have you on. Usually when a person wants to go and choose one of this place or that place, he will look, what's his company like? If it's a nice place, new place, everything's getting shiny, all the workers look nice and professional, this place looks like a place where you working there is of some significance. As opposed to like a shabby place, it's a little bit run down, the lights are flickering, the workers look like they just came out of prison. It's usually not a place that you're going to be inclined to. You're not going to be inclined to it. Why? Just from the materialistic, from the tangible. You say, my heart leans towards this. If, for example, you see two guys walking in the street. One, for example, wearing a suit, like a nice suit, looking good. The other guy, for example, wearing a hoodie and track pants, and he's covering his head. Which of the two would you feel more comfortable with or feel safer around? The one in the hoodies and the tracksuit may be the nicest guy on the face of the earth. And the one in the suit may be the biggest thief on the face of the earth. But naturally, when you see them, you're going to be more inclined to be more comfortable with the one who looks more professional. This is just human nature. It's human nature. If you were to come to the masjid and the masjid was dirty, would you feel comfortable here? You wouldn't feel comfortable. If you were sitting here and a rat ran past, would you feel comfortable? You're not going to feel comfortable. If I was sitting here giving the lessons in a singlet, would you feel comfortable? Some of you maybe. But in general, you're like, I don't want to see you, I don't feel comfortable. I didn't come to learn off the sheikh in a singlet. That doesn't make sense. You don't feel comfortable. Naturally, as human beings, there are things that make you more comfortable, including matters of the dunya. So when you're giving da'wah to someone, and there's a hope that by assisting them financially, it is going to bring their hearts closer to Islam, then this is something that can be done. And again, who is the one that does that? These are the leaders of the Muslims and what they see to be the most correct based on the knowledge and the wisdom that they have. A lot of Christian missionaries, when they go to different countries, whether it's places like Southeast Asia or Africa, it is the norm that you hear a lot of people say, they'll get in one hand they have a Bible, in the other hand they have a bag of rice. Meaning they go and they entice the people to come there through means. Either food, shelter, clothing, education for their children, and at the same time they are preaching the religion to them. The people, they may not be interested in the religion. But the fact that they are offering something which is materialistic, it makes it easier for them to have that conversation and open up to even give them their eat. Now, so this is something common and implemented by all. Islam is no different in that regard. We go and we hope the people become Muslim by making things easier for them, and if they accept Islam, beautiful. Some people who lack wisdom and insight and foresight, they say, what if the person becomes Muslim only for the money? Let's say there's a leader, okay, of a tribe or of a village, and let's say you were to give him, for example, $500,000. This is for you and your people. You become Muslim, we'll give you this money. It's an enticement. Let's say they say, this person as a leader, he became Muslim only for the money. And the people followed him only for the money. Everyone gets a bit. Is that a problem in and of itself? Yes, no, why? Overall, in general.
No, there's no problem.
Why?
You do your part, leave everything else up to Allah.
This is one way of looking at it. Him becoming Muslim, was he sincere or not? Who's that up to? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I don't know what's in a person's heart. Right now, you sitting in front of me sitting in front of you. You don't know whether I'm doing this for money, fame. You don't know whether I'm doing this because the aircon doesn't work at my house. You don't know. I'm sitting here teaching. Yes, you may think good of me, jazakumullahu khairan. But the reality is that no one knows what's inside the heart except Allah Azza wa Jal. The same as I don't know what's in anyone else's heart. So when someone becomes Muslim, it's not up to me to judge what's inside of his heart. Because that's between him and Allah. I'm worried about that which is outwardly. He became Muslim, alhamdulillah, excellent. Well, this is on one perspective. What else?
For the next generation.
Very good, you've heard this from me before, barakallahu feek. Let's just say a whole village of 1,000 people. Let's say every single one of them became Muslim just for the money. And they were a bunch of hypocrites, meaning literally they didn't believe in Islam. They just accepted it for the money. Is that a problem for the greater picture of the Islam and the Muslims? No. Why? Because future generations, what are they all going to become, inshallah? They're all going to become Muslim. Let's say those 1,000 people became Muslim, okay, as hypocrites. They all have children. Let's say they all have, for example, 3 children. How many children do they have? That answer, I want Mahmoud to answer. Mahmoud. If there's a village of 1,000 and they all had 3 children each, or they had, that village produced 3,000 children, or 3 children, how many?
1,500.
Oh, tabarakallah.
Yeah?
It's pretty good, tabarakallah. Why? Why did he say 1,500?
What if there was 1,000 women?
We didn't want to get to specifics, but I was good. He's good, alhamdulillah.
It's all right.
Okay, so let's say they have 3 children. Okay, we said 1,000 because it has to be a man marrying a woman. Now, so they get married, they have children. Let's just say the next generation there's 1,500 children in that village now. Those 1,500 children, they get raised as what? They get raised as Muslims now. Let's just say what the 1,000 as an example, hypothetically, all of them went to the hellfire. But their children, there's 1,500 children, they grew up, now there's a masjid in the area. And there's a sheikh teaching Islam. There's, for example, a Muslim school. Things become halal. Islam becomes implemented. So these children grow up with what? Grow up with Islam and they grow up sincerely. Tayyib, that 1,500, they have children. Generation after generation after generation. If all of those people were hypocrites at the beginning, now their children and their children, their children, their children, their children, and it continues and continues and continues, alhamdulillah, all of them now are Muslim. Ultimately, in the greater scheme of things, did Islam benefit? Yes or no? Yes, of course. So there's great wisdom in it. There's great wisdom in it. Another example of وَالْمُؤَلَّفَةِ قُلُوبُهُمْ where it's valid is to stop the harm of a people. In modern day times, let's just say New Zealand's a non-Muslim country and Australia's a Muslim country. Okay? And New Zealand wants to attack Australia. So we say, listen, we don't want war right now. We'll give you, for example, $2 billion and we'll stay at peace. Let's say they're stronger than us. We'll stay at peace for the next 5 years. So we put like a contract between us. Here's $2 billion. Don't harm the Muslims for the next, or don't attack us and we won't attack you. Contract agreement between us. This is also possible. Now, so one is to bring their hearts closer to Islam, they actually become Muslim. Another example is for them to keep their harm away. This still happens and can happen in certain areas. Let's say certain countries, they're either Christian or they're like idol worshippers, like some African countries, etc. Sometimes, let's say the sheikh or the people working in da'wah, they want to go work there and give da'wah to the people, but let's say there's villages that will attack, or there's tribes that will attack. Sometimes they'll give them from the wealth and they say, listen, this is for you guys, if you let us give da'wah. And they agree, beautiful. Okay, so there's a lot of cases where this still happens on the ground. It can happen on the level of countries, obviously, but it still happens on the ground in certain places where they want to go give da'wah and they want to keep their harm away from the people. Another example of وَالْمُؤَلَّفَةِ قُلُوبُهُمْ is for it could be also for the Muslims to strengthen their hearts. Okay, let's say you have the Christian missionaries working and they're offering so many services to Muslims, the poor Muslims in the country. And we want to combat that and we want to say, no, don't go to the Christian missionaries, stay with the Muslims. Obviously, they can be given from Zakat al-Mal. Some will be poor and needy. Some will be poor and needy, so that's one category that they can already fall under. But some of them, they might not be poor and needy. They might have what they already need to live. They might be comfortable, but they're coming with certain services or they're coming with certain opportunities, and that's what's taking them away from Islam, and you're worried that they're going to fall into the trap of the missionaries. So you give them in order to strengthen their Islam, and you provide the services that can also be given from Zakat al-Mal. So these are the two general types when it comes to وَالْمُؤَلَّفَةِ قُلُوبُهُمْ, those who are inclined to Islam or to keep them in Islam or to keep away their harm. Then type number 5 is وَفِي الرِّقَابِ, to free the slaves. To free the slaves. The zakat may be used to free a slave or a mukatib. What's a mukatib? What's correct mukatib? Firstly, what is mukatib? Oh, mashallah, tabarakallah. You're thinking pants on. Yeah, what type of slave? Yallah, explain. Is it like an African slave, a Lebanese slave?
It's a slave with a contract to buy his freedom from his master.
Allah yahdik. Yeah, I know what you're looking at. Look at me and answer.
It's like a type of slave with a contract
For a period of time.
To buy his freedom, something like that.
Okay. Fiqh explain what a mukatib is.
An educated slave.
An educated slave. يا أحمد من هو المكاتب؟
كتب مع الوالد بتاعه عشان يحرر نفسه فناقص فلوس عشان يحرر.
جيد. He is, the mukatib is someone, is a slave who has a contract with his master that his master will free him if he earned a certain amount of money. So let's say master has a slave and he says, listen, if you get me $50,000, I'll free you. I'll free you. So he goes, for example, works as a laborer, works as a carpenter, maybe he works in the market, whatever it is. He goes and he works and he buys his freedom. So he goes and works for a week, he earns, for example, $2,000, he'll go to his master and pay. So now he owes him $48,000. So he's got that little bit of freedom and at the same time, he's a slave. So he's gone not 100% slave, he's not 100% free, he's in between. Okay, he's mukatib because he's got that contract between him and his master. In Arabic, you can say mukatib or you can say mukatab. Both of them are correct. So the zakat may be used to free a slave or a mukatib. The mukatib is a slave with a contract to buy his freedom from his master, and he may be given an amount from the zakat to complete his debt. This category also includes paying off the ransom of Muslim prisoners of war. So if there is a Muslim prisoner of war that's been captured by the enemy, and they ask for a ransom, that ransom, some of the ulama also said, can be paid from the zakat. Slavery in Islam. We'll spend a little bit of time on that because we do get a lot of questions about this. Is there something called slavery in Islam? Yes, there's something called slavery in Islam. Automatically, when people think of slavery, they go straight to what Americans done with the African slaves over there, and the torture and the killing and the rape and everything bad that they done there. Islam and slavery has nothing to do with that or like that. Yes, there is slavery in Islam. Is there only black people that become slaves? No. Okay, it's not only black people that become slaves. Anyone can be a slave. Do slaves have rights in Islam? They have an extreme amount of rights in Islam. An extreme amount of rights. The owner has to feed them from what he eats. He has to clothe them from what he wears. He has to treat them well. He's not allowed to abuse them. He's not allowed to overwork them. If the owner does something wrong, the slave can go and complain to the judge. And there's been many cases in Islamic history where the slave goes and he complains, like he raised the case against his owner and he wins. Many cases in Islamic history. Now, Islam promotes the teaching of the slaves. Teach them, teach them to read and to write. Teach them to learn trade. Teach them to learn skills that they can benefit the Muslim community with. Fix their etiquette. Get them married. Allow them to get married from people that are like them, slaves, or free them for them to get married to free people. If a person does something wrong, one of the first atonements for that sin is to free a slave. Islam came and looked after slaves. It came and looked after slaves. How does a person become a slave? A person doesn't go freely and say, I'm a slave, or I want to become a slave. It doesn't work like that. Slavery usually comes about in two main ways. Number one is war. When war happens, people are taken as prisoners of war. Then the Islamic leadership decides what happens with those prisoners of war. Some may be killed, some may be ransomed back, some may be used to teach the Muslims certain things, and then they are released. This happened at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, where some of the prisoners of war that were captured, they were told to teach the Muslims how to read and write, and then they'll be freed. And they've done that. Okay, so let's say one of them is, for example, an engineer in a certain, so he's a civil engineer. I don't know why civil engineer or people, but he said he was in the war for some reason, and they caught him. Okay, they said, okay, teach the people about engineering for a year, and then we'll free you. That's a possibility. Now, from amongst the possibilities is that the people get taken as slaves. From amongst the possibilities, people get taken as slaves. So this is in times of war. Another time where people become slaves is when they're born into it. So the mother and the father are slaves, and then they have a child. That child also is born into slavery. Now, many of the great scholars in Islam were slaves. Many of the great scholars in Islam were slaves. And again, it was how the people treated them that made the difference. It was not, wallah, they were slaves. When the ruling came, I believe it was in the 1960s, if I'm not mistaken, when there was pressure by the UN and other countries to end slavery, and the people left, they freed the slaves that they had, because this was enforced upon them by the countries. Those people, they didn't turn and wallah leave Islam. Many of them were already Muslim for generations. Again, it wasn't that hatred that like the black Americans have towards the white Americans, where they were mistreated so much that they wish they could do whatever they could to get revenge against the white Americans, or at least they get some of their rights back that they were promised when they were to be freed, etc. It wasn't like that. They were already Muslim for generations because of the good dealings that the Muslims had with them. They didn't hate the Muslims. And that's why even though they were freed, they still lived in those Muslim countries, stayed with the people that owned them before, and still kept good ties because they treated them well. Now, one of my mashayikh in Egypt, his grandfather had 2 slaves. And he says when when the ruling came and the slaves were freed, they started crying. They started crying because they're like, what do we do now? This is not only is it everything that we knew, but we're so close to this person, and he looks after us and he's good with us, etc. And now it's like a new world. Now, subhanAllah, so many people living in Muslim countries until today go back only 2 generations, not even. Now, and they were slaves in Muslim countries, and when they were freed, they said because of the good treatment. So don't look at slavery and think what happened in America. Very, very, very different. Type number 6, wal-ghalimin, those that are in debt. These are of 2 types. The first, the one who is in debt in order to meet his own needs, and so he's given from the zakah an amount to pay it off if he is poor. The second, one who is in debt because he reconciled 2 groups of Muslims, and so he is given an amount from the zakah to pay off the debt, even if he is wealthy. The first type, if a person took money from someone, he borrowed money from someone because of a need that he had. Let's say someone he works for himself. He got injured. He was out of work for 6 months. He's now behind on his rent. And if he doesn't pay his rent now, the landlord's going to kick him out. So he had to borrow money of someone. He said, please bro, lend me money just for a year. I've been off work, not because I'm lazy, but because I got injured and I can't work, and I'm trying to get what I can. I'm trying to hustle, but I don't have enough. I've fallen behind on my rent. Please lend me money so I can pay back my rent. So he borrows, for example, $10,000. He pays his rent, and he asks for a year. Unfortunately, the injury continued. He still wasn't able to work. Now his debt is due. It's due to be paid back, and he can't afford it. Why did he borrow the money? Because of a need. Because of a need. Now that the debt is due and he can't pay it back, and he's not working because of laziness, he actually is trying to work but he can't, and there's no way of him to get an income, then this person can be given zakat money to pay off his debt. This doesn't include a person falling into debt because he wanted to. A person wanted to buy a fishing boat. He said to the guy, listen, sell me the boat, I'll pay you back I'll pay you in 6 months' time. 6 months' time comes, he can't pay the person back. Did you give him zakat? No. He didn't need that fishing boat. Okay? It needs to be money borrowed because you needed it, and it needs to be due. That money needs to be due. Not wallah, you borrow money and the guy says pay it back in 5 years' time, and next year you say, you know what, no. Let me get zakat money so I can pay it off. No, it needs to be due. Okay, and you're not going to be able to pay it, and you're not going to be able to pay it because you can't. You're trying. Let's say you're fit and healthy. This has happened. Someone's fit and healthy. But let's say, for example, he's a carpenter, and he goes, oh, I'm out of work. Okay, what's stopping you from going to find another job? Nah, I'm a carpenter, I only want to go work in carpentry. But you can go work security, you can go work as a laborer, you can go work as an Uber driver, you can go work as a personal trader, you can go do a million things. Nah, I'll only work in my trade. If a person's like that, then they're not worthy of zakat. Because they have the ability to go and earn an income and they're not going. That's on them. You have to figure it out. Now, this is talking about someone who can't. He's in need and it's due and he needed to take the money and he can't earn or he can't make that money back for whatever reason. That's the person that's signed up for zakat. The second type is the one who is rectifying between people. Let's say a case comes to me where one group of brothers is punching on with another group of brothers and an issue happens. And they say, we'll drop the issue if the guy gives $30,000. The guy says, I don't have $30,000. Where am I going to get $30,000 from? Let's say I took it upon myself to say, you know what, khalas, I'll get you that $30,000. Drop it, I'll get you that $30,000. So I borrow money of someone, I borrow $30,000 of someone to pay that person for them to drop the issue with the other person. I'm entitled to zakat. I'm entitled to get that $30,000 repaid because I took on debt to sort out an issue between people. Okay, again, this is not for anyone. This is for people who have the ability to do so. They're well known in the community, etc., etc., etc. Nunes kind of takes this as an idea at school. Two people punch on and you say, you know what, khalas, I'll get $5,000 and your dad has to pay you zakat money. It doesn't work like that. Tayyib. The seventh type is wa fi sabilillah. Whenever you hear fi sabilillah in the Quran or the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what does it refer to specifically?
Jihad.
Jihad. Okay? Take it as a golden rule. Whenever you hear fi sabilillah in the Quran or in the Sunnah, this is talking about jihad. Okay? Jihad of fighting. It's not just general for the sake of Allah. You have when we talk about terminologies, the way you use words, you have an Islamic linguistic, you have an Islamic meaning, you have a linguistic meaning, you have a customary meaning. Okay, for example, if I say laham, and I'm talking about the Islamic definition of laham, how is it used in the Quran or Sunnah? Something specific. Yani, what does it encompass? If we say laham in the Quran or Sunnah, what does it encompass? Where does laham come in the Quran or Sunnah?
Animal.
لحم أخيه ميتا فكرهتموه.
The cow. Or jam al-ibn.
Okay, so you got, for example, cows, you got camels, you got the back of your brother.
Ghanam. An'am.
What about fish?
Yeah.
What's the verse?
لحما طريا.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says soft meat, talking about fish. Tayyib. If I was to, in Lebanese, call fish laham, would anyone know what I'm talking about? No one would know. So you have an Islamic usage, that which came in the Quran. Then you have a customary usage. Okay? So, if a person in the Lebanese culture, okay, again, other cultures may be different. In the Lebanese culture, if he said, I want to eat laham, okay, even though in the Quran the word laham is used and it also encompasses fish, they would know that it's not talking about fish. It's not talking about chicken either. It's talking about either beef or lamb. Okay? You're not talking about fish, or you're not talking about chicken. Tayyib. In the Arabic language, laham again could be open. It could be talking about the meat of animals, like fish, chicken, etc. Like lahm tayrin. Okay, also talking about the meat of birds. Okay, so it could talk about all of that. It could talk about, like the doctor mentioned, the flesh of the back of your brother, etc. And it could talk about any type of flesh. Any type of flesh. So you need to know in context, what the person is talking about. What the person is talking about. This is very important when inshallah Azza wa Jal you get higher and higher in Islamic knowledge and you become a shaykh inshallah and ulama. This will be very important for you to understand how to give the fatwa. If someone says, Shaykh, I divorced my wife. Why did you divorce my wife? Because I said to her, Wallahi, if I ever eat laham again, you're divorced. If I ever eat laham again, you're divorced. He said, yeah, why are you divorced? He said, because I eat fish. So what did you intend when you said laham? He said, no, I read in the Quran that Allah called fish laham also. But what did you intend when you said laham? He said, no, obviously, Sheikh, I intended what we mean, that I'm not going to eat beef, I'm not going to eat lamb, etc. We say, no, then you're still married, even if you ate fish, because of what you intended. Now, so the usage is very important. Fi sabilillah, yes, in the Arabic language, it means in the path of Allah. In the path of Allah, anything that you do with the intention that's for the sake of Allah, this is fi sabilillah. But when you talk about Islamic terminology in the Quran or in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, Fi sabilillah, golden rule, it's talking about jihad fi sabilillah. Okay, fighting in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, we continue and we say, for the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sake, these are ones who carry a jihad for the sake of Allah and do not have an entitlement, meaning they don't get paid by the government. Or they have an entitlement that does not meet their needs. And so they are given that which is enough for them to carry a jihad for the cause of Allah. Let's say they need to, for example, here, pay rent. And they're going to go travel, but they need to pay rent for their families here. So they're given to pay that. Maybe they have enough money, but they can't buy weaponry. So they're given enough money to buy their weaponry. Maybe they need a horse. Okay, they're given what they need in order for them to actually go out in jihad fi sabilillah. Nowadays, most of the armies, the people, they have a wage, so their wages are covered. But in previous times, and even now, you still have the voluntary services. People that go from their own souls. If they are needed, and they go out, and they do not have enough, they are able to be given from the zakat. Another category that ulama add to fi sabilillah here is in the field of da'wah. In the field of da'wah. That if someone is in the path of Allah seeking knowledge or giving da'wah, why? Because they both serve the same purpose, which is i'ala kalimatillah azza wa jal. Both of them serve the same purpose, which is to make Allah's word the highest. One by enforcing it through jihad and defending it, one by teaching it. So they meet the same goal. Many of the ulama said, in the path of Allah, also because it serves the exact same purpose, goes towards the students of knowledge that need, or those in da'wah that need. Students of knowledge that need, or those in da'wah that need. This is a very common, especially nowadays, a very common fatwa. Some of the ulama, and this is a newer fatwa, they say, fi sabilillah, yani Allah Azza wa Jal means anywhere. And this goes against the principles of the Arabic language. Yani Allah would not mention all of these specific categories, then mention wa fi sabilillah. Why would Allah get for all those categories? Not only that, the tafdeed. In the Arabic language, in eloquence, you don't mention types, then add a different type, then a type again. In the Allah Azza mention specific, general, and then specific again, doesn't make sense. Okay, doesn't make sense. Those that studied, for example, fiqh, and they went through wudu, and they came across the verse of wudu, فَاغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ وَأَرْجُلَكُمْ منصوب مجرور منصوب. It's not sahar. It's not sahar. Everyone's looking at me like, يعني in the Arabic language, there's, don't worry about it.
It goes back to washing.
Yeah, so يعني why did Allah Azza wa Jal put a majroor in between the mansubat? The reason is because the tartib is it has to be in order. That's why it's there. Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't be eloquent. It would be actually a mistake in the Arabic language. طيب. Type number 8, the wayfarer Ibn Sabil. Mahmoud, look at me. Who's Ibn Sabil? No.
Okay, I know this, like when you're traveling somewhere and like someone is like your neighbor, like not your neighbor, like someone sitting next to you for that journey.
Allah yahdi. You look so confident. Ahmed Saadhum. Are you whispering to him?
He's saying what?
Because Allah, not only do I have 2 ears that hear exactly what you're saying, but I have 2 eyes, you see right in front of me. If you're going to cheat, at least do I can't see. Saadhu ya Ahmed.
But is it not like...
You had your chance. Jazakallah khairan. Jayyid. Now, someone, Ibn Sabil, the wayfarer, is someone who is traveling, and for whatever reason has lost his provisions and cannot get back. We'll read and then we'll explain inshallah. The wayfarer, this is the traveler who became stranded during his travels and has no wealth remaining. So he is given from the zakat that which will get him back to his hometown, even if he is a wealthy person in his homeland. Just as an example, okay, hypothetical. Let's say someone came from Indonesia to Australia. Okay, and alhamdulillah, he's got money, he's got his cash, he's got everything, and he's able to get back, everything's normal. But when he's here, he gets robbed or he loses all of his money, whatever it may be. He has no more money. So he needs to get back to Indonesia. And he doesn't have any money. So he's allowed to be given from zakat an amount that which will allow him to get back to his hometown. Okay? So let's say he comes and he says, Wallah, I've lost everything, and I need, for example, $1,000 to get back to Indonesia. We're allowed to give him from zakat for him to get back. Now, if he's wealthy, some of the ulama said he needs to pay back the money. If he's wealthy, some of the ulama said he needs to pay back the money. Now, and other ulama said no, because he was in need at that time, even if he was wealthy, he doesn't have to repay it. Obviously, the safer is for him to pay it back. Allahu A'lam. It is not permissible to spend the zakat on anyone other than those 8 types of people mentioned, not even for a good cause or as a benefaction, such as building mosques, schools, hospitals, and other such good causes. They need to go to individuals. The zakat needs to go towards individuals now that are in need of that zakat. There are some exceptions. But the general rule is that it doesn't go towards buildings. Zakat is not given to a masjid. Zakat is not given to build a hospital. Zakat is not given to buy a bus for people. It's not given to build a school. This is the general rule. There are some exceptions. That's up to, again, the ulama, the scholars who say this is what is going to benefit those people the most. People that are deserving of zakat, this is what they need, and this is what's in their best interest, possibly. But the general rule is that it goes to individuals, not to buildings. Now, obviously they can be given sadaqah, they can be given general charity. General charity is flexible, get wherever you want. But obligatory charity, meaning zakat, specific places. هذا والله أعلم صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله محمد وصحبه أجمعين. Any questions, brothers, on these 8 categories first and foremost?
So some people, say for example, the zakat ends up being, say, 20,000, 30,000, whatever it may be.
Allahumma barik, yeah.
Allahumma barik. That person that requires, or he's part of the 8, he only, to keep him living the whole year comfortably, only needs 10. Can that person give him the whole amount, or does he have to distribute according to what he needs for the whole year? You understand?
No.
You only need 10 grand.
Yeah.
That to live for the whole year comfortable.
Yes.
I've got $30,000.
Yeah.
Can I give you the 30, or can I give you only 10?
No. The person's only given what they need
For the year.
For the year, yes.
SubhanAllah.
Yeah. So you could give me 10,
Yeah.
which I'm more than happy to accept for the coffee. And then the other 20, you distribute it elsewhere.
Yeah. SubhanAllah.
Going back to the one when you're talking about the slave, what would happen if the slave won the case? If when they go to the judge?
Then whatever he done, whatever the ruler or whatever his master done wrong, he'll have to fix it. Let's say the slave says he's not feeding me properly.
Yeah.
He's having steak and barbecues and he's only giving me boiled white rice. And then the judge said, no, you're oppressing him, you have to feed him from that food. So he has to do it.
Can he free him, Sheikh? Can he free him, the Qadi?
In circumstances, yeah, of course. But in circumstances, not. It's usually to do with things like that, and there's a correction first.
Sure. Is there a difference in the status and the rights of a female slave as opposed to a male slave?
There's certain things that you can do with one that you can't do with the other, yeah.
Can you elaborate?
So mature, mashallah. So mature, tabarakallah.
It's Tommy.
It's always Tommy. Of course, it's always Tommy.
Apart from that, generally, are they the same rights, or is it work-wise?
Yeah, each according to their what they are capable of. So, for example, if a guy who can hold, for example, easily 50 kilos and work all day with it, no problem. If you can expect that from him, as an example, but you can't expect the same from a female slave. Each one's according to their ability. Usually the female slaves were used in more feminine roles, and the male slaves in more male-dominated roles, like working in the field, or a lot of what we have, like modern-day trades, etc. A lot of that would have been done by people like the slaves.
Does the zakah have to be money, or can it be like?
Does the what have to be money?
Zakah, does it have to be money?
The only time it's not money, it's when it's from that category. So, for example, if it's from al-kharij min al-ard, like the plants or the fruits,
yeah,
it'll be that. Or if it's from urud al-tijara, it will be from urud al-tijara, the commodities.
Okay.
So
you can give like food or things like that with the same money worth?
If you're giving zakat from money, like
From
let's say
money.
let's say a person has $10,000 in a bank account, so his zakat is going to be $250. Are you asking can it be given as food packs, etc.?
Yeah, if you are worried that this guy
Yes,
may,
yes, yes.
may have
The asl is that no. The asl is that it's given. The principle, the default position is that it's given as money. Your zakat is 250, and they're deserving of zakat. You give them 250 because they know what's best. They know their circumstances. But if a person has real reason to believe that they are not going to be good with their money, then either you can ask them, what do you need paid? Like for, let's say they say we need our rent paid. You can pay the rent on their behalf with the zakat money. Or it happens in some cases where like a charity will know the circumstances of the people and they'll give them, for example, food. You pay the charity and they'll buy them food. So that's their 250. You're using it in their best interest on their behalf. If food is the best thing, no problem. If rent, if electricity, if car registration, whatever it may be. But it has to be in their best interest. Some people straight away, they'll buy them, for example, food. And they'll give it and they'll go, this is zakat. No, that's not correct. It has to be in their best interest. Maybe they needed a debt paid off. That's why it's usually always given to them as cash. But if let's say they smoke and they're going to burn all the money on that. Or there's some people, like for example in Lebanon, there's a lot of people, if you give them let's say $1,000, they'll go buy a brand new phone with it. Even though haram is kids, they're living in a very bad house or they owe people money, but because of like showing off, he'll go buy a phone. So they're like, no, I'm not going to give him the money. Let me know what your debts are, and then I'll pay them off. Or what your rent is, I'll pay it off. Or what your children's like medical needs are, I'll pay them off, etc.
Slavery applies in today's context.
There's still slaves today, and there'll be more slaves later. Allah. The rulings of slaves are very important because you don't know how things turn out in the near future. Because like I said, in times of war, a person can become a slave. It's not an obligation for them to become Muslim, obviously it's their choice, but the master is meant to show them a proper example of what a Muslim is. If you are a reason why they end up hating Islam because you treat them badly, and that's a major sin on your neck.
You have to worry about which category you are going to pay to, zakat, or
Some of the ulama said you have to do it over all 8 categories, but Allah's strong opinion is wherever you see fit, you can donate to. What's better is for you to say where is the most needed, and for me to donate towards there. Where is the most needed? But if a person, let's say his family needed or he wanted to donate towards this particular project, no issue. It can be for one category, it can be multiple categories, or it can be all categories. Up to you, no issue. The best zakat that you can give is where there's either the most need. Let's say, for example, the Syrian refugees, that's an example, may Allah make the affairs easy. Or let's say even closer, let's say the Palestinian cause now. Okay, they're refugees, there's millions that are displaced, etc. May Allah subhanahu make the affairs easy. So they need zakat. They need zakat urgently. So right now, this is a project that the whole ummah says, we need to get the money urgently. So this is a time where it will be prioritized. Or another time that it's prioritized is when it's your family. So let's say you have an uncle or an auntie or a cousin that are poor. It's better that you look after them, because when everyone looks after his family first and foremost, it's going to reduce the pressures of an ummah needing to help that person. So family or need, these are the usually priorities when it comes to zakat.
And you can bring it forward,
You can bring it forward if there's a need. So you can pay, for example, a year in advance.
like does, I don't know.
Yeah, he's older than you.
So I believe this is based on your niyyah, is it, for zakat? Because if certain organization is asking you for donations for what's happening in Palestine, so if your niyyah is for zakat, and you...
Very important, this is very important. If you are donating to an organization, please try your best somehow to mention to them that this is zakat money. Try your best to mention that this is zakat money. Why? Because you have, like we've said, general sadaqah, and that's very flexible. Then you have zakat. Zakat is very specific who it goes to. So sadaqah, for example, they can leave it sitting there if they need to. Zakat, they're meant to spend it sooner rather than later. Or if they're spending money on, for example, let's say a water ball, they can't spend from the water ball from the zakat money unless there's a need. So if they've got $50,000 in sadaqah and $10,000 in zakat, they need to use that 50,000 in. They need to use that 50,000 first. Why are you using the zakat money? Zakat has specific needs. So try your best to always mention that this is zakat money, so they can put it in the zakat category, inshallah. Most charities, again, they're decent with this. That's why I always do with a trusted charity. Like a new charity that just has nice marketing, be very careful unless you know who are the mashayikh that are behind this charity. And sometimes you have charities, they have mashayikh that they go back to often. They ask them questions, they overlook their work, etc. But a lot of charities, no shaykh, no nothing. Whatever we say good, they do. And some of them, for example, Qurban. Qurban, there's certain ages for the animals that you're slaughtering. You can't just slaughter any animal. They were slaughtering animals that were younger than the age. So the people that donated with them, inshallah, the people, it's accepted from them because they didn't know, inshallah, it's correct. But that charity, Allah Musta'an.
Any reason why Ahlul Bayt were not allowed to receive
Amongst the reasons that zakat is considered male khabith. It's not pure wealth. And if part of the reason a person gives zakat is any haram in the wealth, it's removed from the people, it's like filtered. Now part of it is to purify your wealth. And so it's not befitting for Ahlul Bayt to have this high status, for them to take that which is a purification from the people and then they benefit from it.
even the sadaqah, Shaykh, they wouldn't have taken.
There's an opinion. There's an opinion that they can't take sadaqah. Any other questions, Shabab? Going once?
I heard that you're supposed to prioritize your zakah to go to the people in the country you're in,
Correct.
rather than
This is correct.
even if your family, for example, needs zakah and they're overseas.
This is another time where you can prioritize, where it should be in your locality first and foremost, to make sure that the people here are looked after, and then go outside. But these are two processes because in previous times you didn't have what you have today, where half your family lives in one country, the other half lives in another country, etc. It wasn't like this before. So yes, it is correct that your locality first and foremost should be looked after. If you can, your locality, which would usually include your family. Your family. Nowadays, sometimes you have your locality, which is in need, and sometimes you have your family overseas. So which do you prioritize? If a person can split between this is good. Any other questions, Shabab? General questions? Going once? Twice? Solved. سبحانك وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.